here because the outside world rejects you.
Hey, what's up everyone? Today we take another look at a big moment from the original Mirage Ninja Turtles comics. It's actually one of the biggest moments in Ninja Turtles history, the time the Ninja Turtles met April O'Neil for the first time. And this was before the original 1987 cartoon. This is the very first time the characters ever met, and it was from those original Mirage black and white comics from the 80s that paved the way for everything that came out after. Now, this moment is actually intertwined with another big moment in Turtles history, and this is when the Turtles first meet and defeat another great villain of theirs, Baxter Stockman. Now, this whole event comes from issue 2 and is set right after the events of the very first issue of the series, the one where the Turtles killed the Shredder. We did a whole video breaking that moment down, as well as other moments from that very first issue. Make sure to check out the Mirage Comics playlist here on the channel. I'll leave a pinned comment here in the video to that playlist. Now, what led to the Turtles meeting April? What was she doing at the time? And how exactly is Baxter Stockman involved in all this? Well, let's go ahead and waste no time and take a look at the very first time the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles met April O'Neil and Baxter Stockman too. We start off with the Turtles and Splinter all hanging out in their living room watching the news. They hear that the news mentions a person named Baxter Stockman. Splinter gets concerned about this scientist Baxter Stockman, and you can see why. They talk about these mousers that he's developed at his company, and you see that the mousers are fully operational rodent hunter, seekers, and killers. So yeah, this whole mouser project by Baxter clearly doesn't sit well with Splinter, as they are rat exterminators. Now, it's also during this interview that we get our first glimpse at April O'Neil, who works there with Baxter Stockman as a scientist's assistant. Splinter says that they must be more cautious from now on when they go out, and so with this in mind, the Turtles and Splinter go on living their normal lives. Now, after some weeks pass by, we see that April, who is at work with Baxter Stockman, is discussing some bank robberies that are happening around the city. April mentions to Baxter that the way the money is being stolen through little holes in the wall could have been done by the mousers if someone had programmed them to do that. Now, because April mentions this sets off a series of events where Baxter invites April down to a secret level in Baxter's building. It's here at this secret level that April discovers that Baxter Stockman is behind the bank robberies that are happening in the city, as he confesses it to her. April asks him why, that he can make way more money legally with all of his inventions. This is when we begin to see our first glimpse at who Baxter Stockman really is and what evil motives he has. He explains his reasons. He just seems to be a twisted madman who doesn't even care about money. He's just doing this for fun. As he explains it to April, April makes a run for it to the elevator, but when she gets in there, Baxter traps her in it. You see that he has trap doors on the elevator and is able to control it from the outside. He opens the trap doors, dropping April down into the sewer drains. Now in the sewer drains, she begins to run for her life as Baxter Stockman sends the mousers after her. She sees a tunnel down in the sewers and goes through it to escape. All the while, Baxter is watching her on security cameras. He laughs as he finds joy that she will be slain by the very technology that she, April, has made possible working there at the lab. April, who is still running for her life in the sewers, eventually becomes cornered by the mousers. She's terrified as they are about to strike and kill her, but then suddenly you see that the mousers start getting whacked, stabbed, and sliced in half. She looks up and she sees that it's the Ninja Turtles standing in front of her, and we see that this makes her pass out. As April wakes up, to her surprise, it was not her imagination, but in fact she really did see these humanoid turtles, and now this humanoid rat as well. She asks Splinter who he is, and then Splinter tells her who he and the turtles are. She thanks them for saving her life, and during this conversation, April tells the turtles about the bank robberies and how Baxter Stockman's behind it. She continues to tell the turtles all about his evil plan to kill people in the city buildings using the mousers, which he had revealed to her as he was confessing his crimes earlier. It's during this moment that the turtles hear that on the TV that buildings are being evacuated in the city. The news reporter says that there was a video ransom tape delivered to City Hall. The video begins to play. You can see that the person in it starts off by saying, "Greetings, citizens of New York. Who I am is not important. Well, not as important as what I'm prepared to do." This is when April shouts, "My God, that's Baxter." The video continues to play as Baxter says he intends to extort $1 billion from the major businesses of New York, that he will hold hostage every corporate headquarters buildings in the city, and that if he is not paid the ransom, he will demolish each building one by one. He continues to say that at 3 p.m. he will demolish the Rexab building that has been vacant as an example, before then moving on to other buildings with people in them. We continue to see the news unfold on the television, and it's now 3:03 p.m. and the Rexab building hasn't been destroyed yet. You can see that the news reporter begins to speculate that maybe this was all just a hoax, but just before the reporter can finish his words, we see that the Rexab building begins to crumble behind him. April and the Turtles are all shocked at how Baxter just destroyed this building, using the Mousers to weaken its foundation. You see Splinter asks April here if she can remember her way back to Baxter's lab. April says that she thinks so, and so Splinter sets the Turtles on their next mission to go with April and use their skills to stop this madness. We next see the Turtles with April sneak into Baxter's lab. They come in the same way April left, through the elevator floor. We see that Leonardo sneaks up to Baxter and places his blade on Baxter's shoulder. He tells Baxter that his reign of terror has ended. Baxter, surprised at what he's seen, he's never seen the Turtles before, asks them, "What are you? Who are you? And how did you get in?" April tells him that they came with her. Baxter is shocked that she is still alive. We see that Baxter is being restrained by the Turtles as April tries to figure out how she can shut down the system controlling the Mousers. Although, in one mad attempt, Baxter tries to escape from the Turtles, fighting them off. He manages to get loose from the Turtles and runs towards the system controls panel and manages to pull one of the levers. You see that this kicks in something of a self-destruct program for the lab, but instead of the lab blowing up, Baxter explains, as he's laughing by the way, that they will all die because now the Mousers follow a new program. They will eat everything in that room. Michelangelo here manages to get a hold of Baxter, while Raphael shuts Baxter up with a punch to the face, knocking him out. The Turtles and April then realize that the controls to the system are not responding and that they have to escape. Michelangelo tries to open the elevators where they came from, but you can see that the elevator has been flooded by rocks and rubble, which is likely a part of this self-destruction program. That way nothing gets out. Seeing as they are trapped, Donatello and April begin to work on the computer systems to try to find some way to shut down this self-destruction program. April says this will take some time, but they don't have time. The Mousers are coming. Leonardo comes up with a plan to delay the Mousers. They find some explosives that Baxter had there in the lab, and they set up these explosives in a tunnel where the Mousers will likely come from. They finish setting up all of the explosives just in time as the Mousers start arriving. When the Mousers get into position, they set off the explosives, and this knocks everybody back. They have collapsed the tunnel on top of the Mousers, giving themselves some time, but this is only temporary. The Mousers will be able to dig through this rubble eventually and get to them. Back in the lab, Donatello and April are still trying to figure out a way to stop the self-destruction program. Although after every attempt, they still can't get the system to shut down. Donatello asks April if the Mousers are controlled by radio. April says yes. Donatello figures that if they can shut down the power to the transmitter, it will stop broadcasting to the Mousers, but there's no guarantee. This is assuming that the transmitter is connected to the main power system, but they have no other choice. They have to give it a try, and they do, and Donatello seems to break through to something. He finds out how to do the emergency shutdown for the power systems. Meanwhile, back in the tunnels, the first couple of Mousers begin to break through. Leonardo, Raphael, and Michelangelo begin fighting the Mousers, chopping them in half, slicing them to pieces, but then even more start coming through, and there's just too many. They begin to get overwhelmed, and so the Turtles fall back to the lab where Donatello and April are. They close the doors, but we see the Mousers start chewing through the walls. We see that Donatello and April are able to start the program to shut down the power, but the way it's designed is not fast enough, as the program will shut down the power starting with the least essential systems. They realize because it's designed this way, the Mousers will be the last thing to shut down. So yeah, by the time it shuts down the Mousers, it'll be too late. The Mousers will have gotten in by then. Or so they think at least. No one knows the exact timing of how long this process will take. The Mousers are now coming through all the walls and into the lab, and everyone begins to think that they're all gonna die. You hear Leonardo yell, "Turtles die with honor," but then suddenly it goes pitch black as the power systems are shutting down. The power to the lab. In the darkness, you can still hear the Mousers. The shutdown program hasn't gotten to them yet. We hear the turtles trying to fight them off, but we can't see anything. Then suddenly it goes quiet, and we see Leonardo strike a match for some light. They look around. It appears the Mousers have been shut down. They realize that their plan worked. Standing in the dark lab, they all breathe a sigh of relief. It's over. Now, we don't see Baxter at the end of this story, but let's just say this is not the last we have seen of him. We'll discuss that in a future video. But yeah, that's how the Turtles meet April O'Neil for the very first time in Ninja Turtles history, and Baxter Stockman for that matter. Let me know down below in the comments what you thought of this when you first had read this comic, or was this the first time you ever heard of this story? I always thought this story should have been adapted into a movie. It's such a cool ending with them getting overwhelmed like that. It could be done really suspenseful if done right. But that's it for this video. Remember to subscribe if you're new, follow on all the socials. We're always posting on there, and I'll see you guys in a little bit with another video. Take care.